Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. This is another mock draft. It was requested by one of you guys in the comments. So if there are any other mock draft types, which platform, pick number, scoring format, league size, all that, let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to try and honestly take all requests. I'm doing a ton of leagues this year, so it'll be good practice for me almost regardless of what you guys suggest, and it'll be fun for me to help you guys out and do that as well. So in this league, it is a 12-team PPR mock draft on ESPN. I was asked to do this from pick 11, so I'll be doing that. I'm going to go over just my general draft strategy, how I want to approach things. Typically at the 11th spot, so like at the 1-2 turn, what I'm really looking to do is try and end up with one running back and one receiver. Of course, I'm not forced with that, but it's just typically like, unless there's an insane value presenting itself at one position, I typically want to leave the first two rounds with one player from each of those two positions. Just gives you a lot more flexibility later on in the draft. It doesn't result in you feeling like you're penciled into one spot. So we'll see how this goes. I think typically what I've seen myself do around this spot is end up going like Devon Achane and Brian Thomas. I love that kind of start. It feels really great, especially in a full PPR. That was loud. Sorry. But yeah, this should be a lot of fun. Obviously, at the 101, we have Jamar Chase go off the board. That's not shocking. You'll probably see Bijan. I would imagine Saquon goes next. I just can't imagine taking Jefferson third with his current hamstring stuff. So, Gibbs third. That's fun. So yeah, we'll just keep walking through here. Typically around pick 11, if things go chalk, we're looking at either Genti or Achane. I think it's possible you could see both those guys go. In a full PPR, I much prefer Devon Achane to Ashton Genti, so I'm hoping Achane is there. If they're both there, I'd still go Achane. At this point, I would honestly I think if you wanted to, you could make an argument that Achane should go as high as pick 7, and just as I'm saying that, we saw him go at pick 7. So that's going to throw a wrench in our plans. McCaffrey's interesting if he falls this far. He scares the crap out of me. I don't want to be the team to take him, but if he's still there, I might feel backed into it. There's a lot of risk associated with taking him, but in a full PPR, I think that as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be incredibly valuable. I doubt you'll see the same level of explosiveness out of him that we saw early on in his career. Just another significant injury. I think JT at pick 9. That's crazy. Okay, so we're about to be up in one pick. We're going to have a lot of options here. There goes McCaffrey. Okay, so I was just talking. I'm not in love with Ashton Genti. I think he belongs in the same tier as guys like, honestly, I think him and Jacobs and Derrick Henry, they're very similar. So I don't feel like I want to force that pick. So I think I'm actually gonna look to go 2 wide receivers here. For me, I'm just looking at rack up receptions, especially in a full PPR format. We're gonna go with Malik Nabers there. Should just be incredibly involved in the offense. Has a chance to lead the NFL in targets. There's a legitimate path towards 200 targets for Nabers. I'm not worried about the little minor nicks and bruises he's got right now. Sounds like none of that's significant. He should be okay and ready to go early on in the year. So I feel good about Nabers there. What I'm hoping I can do is double team that and get Amon-Ra. That would feel fantastic. If Amon-Ra's gone, which he is, now I've got a tough decision to make. I think Nico and Brian Thomas and Drake London are all 3 in consideration here. If I were going to go running back, I think you could make a case in a full PPR for Chase Brown. Again, we're picking at the end here, at the turn, so you don't really get to play the ADP games. You should take the best player on the board. I don't love any of the running back or receiver. I don't want to feel like I have to force a running back pick here, so we're going to go Nico. I'm starting the draft with Nabers and Nico. That feels great. In a full PPR, I still feel okay going wide receiver. Certainly limits our upside a little bit or our flexibility later on, but I think that'll be okay. And again, like I said, in the full PPR, we're going to be wanting to flex a wide receiver, so it's okay if we go heavy on the wide receiver position a little bit earlier. I don't think I would want to leave this spot having gone running back, but going wide receiver, if I'm going to double dip at one position, that feels better to me than going running back there. So now we're seeing Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs go. We're probably going to see a run at running back. Really interesting to see the ADPs of Bowers and McBride sort of colliding. They used to be a lot more spread out. You saw Bowers go pretty early in the second round and then McBride near the end. You're seeing both of them sort of in a similar spot now. Chase Brown in the middle of the second round is a fantastic pick. Honestly, if I was going to go running back, he would have been my pick there. So I love Chase Brown in full PPR. I think he's just going to be a superstar. Going to be like a household name in fantasy, I think, coming up. So I like Chase Brown a lot. He's definitely a guy that I'm interested in. I just didn't quite want to pull the trigger over an elite guy like Nico that I think has a shot to be the legitimate wide receiver 1 this season. So just looking ahead a little bit here, we're going to have pick 35 with our next pick. So if we just want to take a look at ADP, what I would love to have happen, and I don't think it's going to because the hype train is certainly ramped up. I've been talking about him for a while, and it's warranted. But I would love to get Amari Hampton with my next pick. If he's there, he'll be an auto pick. I think that there's just a great path towards him being a top 10 running back. Like I think, especially with all the stuff surrounding Najee, you could make an argument that he is set up for just as much success as Ashton Genty. Like Genty's a slightly better player, right? But I think Hampton is close. Like he's still an elite talent. He was a first round draft pick, and the offense that Hampton's a part of is going to give him so many more scoring opportunities than what Genty's going to have. So if I can get Marion Hampton here, I'm going to feel fantastic. I don't expect him to be available. Kenneth Walker before Hampton is crazy. Don't do that. So Tyreek Hill. All right, we got to make it 6 picks here. What I would really like to do is I'd love to go running back if I can. But I think if both Hampton and Cook are gone, I don't want to do it. Like Alvin Kamara in a full PPR feels fine, but I feel like I'm just backing into that. I don't love it, so I'm probably not going to go that route. We could go with another wide receiver. Like JSN as our wide receiver 3 is pretty fun. We could look at quarterback here if we wanted to. At the end of the third, it just feels a little bit early. I'd rather get them at the top of the fourth. I don't think there's a distinct difference between any of those 3 guys. I'm really just crossing my fingers here for Hampton, but I think it's really sticky. Travion Henderson's ADP is skyrocketing. I can't really get behind the mid-4th round ADP. I get it, but it's still going to be a timeshare between him and Ramondre. I know he's extremely explosive, but I try to not get too wrapped up in all the excitement that we see surrounding training camp and preseason stuff. Like, we got to make note of it. Like, we know Travion Henderson is good, but we still don't know how good this Patriots offense is. We still expect it to be a timeshare there, so drafting a guy in a timeshare on a mediocre offense in round 4, I just can't get behind that. So we got to make it one more pick. If Hampton's there, we're going to be stoked. If not, well, that's perfect. Okay, so Amari Hampton's the pick here. That's super easy. I feel so good about him as our running back 1 here, especially getting him in the 3rd round. So I think we got kind of lucky with that, though. I wouldn't expect him to always be available, and that ADP is going to continue to rise, it seems like. So don't bank on that. If you're drafting from the 11th spot, you could easily get stuck in a spot where you don't get him there. But if he is there, it's an auto pick. He's just going to be fantastic. And if you go wide receiver to start, that feels like such a good way to round out your roster there. Jaden Daniels goes. That kind of sucks. I was at least flirting with the idea of taking him as my quarterback there, but we missed the quarterback, so that's okay. So now what we're looking at is if we want to look at running back, we could go Alvin Kamara in a full PPR. It's interesting. Travion Henderson, I get it. The upside's there, and I feel better about it if he's my running back too, but I just think there's a lot of decent pass-catching backs later we can wait on, so I'm not going to do that. I want to look at the wide receiver position here. McLaurin doesn't excite me. I'm kind of out on Garrett Wilson. I think what the pick is going to be here is George Kittle. I feel really good about George Kittle as a guy that could potentially be the tight end 1 this season. And I don't want to double dip on a high-end quarterback and a high-end tight end, but because we're not going to take a high-end quarterback, I feel great about getting Kittle in the 4th. So we'll do that. I feel really strong about this start. We're obviously going to need a quarterback later, but that's okay. Once I miss out on the top 4 quarterbacks for me, you can consider 5 Burrow, but for me, I'm only drafting Burrow if I end up with Chase or Higgins early, because otherwise I just don't love the idea of drafting a pocket passer that high, but the stack is just so exciting that sometimes I can't help myself. At that point, we're going to be looking just to wait on quarterback, probably the entire rest of the draft. I'm not going to feel like I need to take a quarterback. There's so many quarterbacks that I feel good about starting right the season with that I don't see value in being the 6th team to take one. I'd rather just be the 12th team to take one, and I'll be okay with that. So we've got a little bit to go before our next pick, but we'll be picking at pick 59. If you guys have watched the channel at all this offseason, you know I am extremely excited about George Pickens, so I would love to get that pick. Jameis Williams would be a consideration. I like McMillan a lot. I think that Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle, a lot of good options there. At running back, if we come to that spot, I'd be super stoked to get Chuba and Kamara, like these guys aren't going to be there. But when we get to like DeAndre Swift, I could see him falling. Breece Hall, if he fell to the late 5th, I can get behind. We know he's talented, right? It's just I don't love the offense. The situation scares me. RJ Harvey's interesting. Taking him in the 6th would be okay. So things to consider there. It's an option. If we want to look at the wide receiver spot, again, like what I would love to do ideally with my next two picks is get one of these stud wide receivers. So Waddle, Ridley, Smith, Sutton, if he's there, maybe Jameson, Pickens, McMillan, one of those guys. I'll feel really great about my third wide receiver in a full PPR. That'll feel fantastic. And then I just got to find the best value at running back with the other pick there. So that's sort of what I'm looking to do in this draft. Yes, we're going to see a lot of running backs go off the board here. Pacheco in the fourth round is crazy. I can't recommend doing that, especially with the other running backs on the board. Like, as much as I've pounded sand for Brees Hall being overdrafted right now, like, I would take him over Pacheco in a heartbeat. And there's also DeAndre Swift available. I'd take RJ Harvey over. Like, I'm pretty out on Pacheco, but, it's whatever. Joe Mixon, it's interesting. The injury is obviously not great, and I don't think I want to have Mixon and Nico, but if he keeps slipping, like right now he's going in the 8th round by ADP right now, that feels like an auto pick for me. Like if you look at the running backs being taken around him, do you want Quinshon Judkins, who seemingly might avoid suspension if he ever signs with the Browns, but like do you want him, or do you want the guy who's proven he can be a running back one over the course of his entire career on a good offense? So like Mixon's a great pick for me, but I want him to be a running back 3 if I'm going to take him. So I don't want to take him just that high yet. We're finally seeing some correction on the ADP with Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren. I've been saying Jalen Warren needs to be drafted ahead of Caleb Johnson. It finally flipped, it seems like, so that's great to see. Or not great to see, because I'd rather just get the value there. But I think Travis Etienne in a full PPR is interesting. I don't want him as a running back 2, but I think he's going to be a lot better than people are giving him credit for. Like, he does not belong below Austin Eckler or below Javonte Williams. Like, he's talented enough to be good. So I just don't want to forget about him there. So we're coming up on our pick here. A lot of the guys we still want are available. I think we're going to get basically our pick at wide receiver here. So that's going to be fantastic. Swift going sucks, though. I was really hoping to get him as my running back, too. I'd have felt a lot better about that. But now we're sort of forced into running back or wide receiver with our next pick. If we wanted to look at running back, though, it does. I think I want RJ Harvey. So I want to get the best wide receiver available and then probably go RJ Harvey if I can. So taking a look at that, it's going to be really tough because I'm going to have so many guys I love here. James Williams going. I want Pickens. He's my next highest. And then it would be Waddle. Okay, so it's at Pickens, Waddle, or Tedero McMillan. It's a really tough choice. I think I want Pickens, but Waddle's right there. That's so tough, but I'm just so stoked about Pickens. I got to go him here. I think he, Waddle, and McMillan all have great opportunities to be top 15 wide receivers, honestly, this season, and they're just absolute steals where they're being drafted, but I just couldn't make myself pull the trigger on Waddle over Pickens here, especially as my wide receiver 3. I think the weekly upside is a lot higher with Pickens than it is with Waddle. So now what we're crossing our fingers for is that RJ Harvey is available with our next pick. We just need this guy not to take him, so that should be okay. Assuming he's available, I will be taking him. I'll have 2 rookie running backs, and I feel fine about that. At full PPR, I think RJ Harvey's still going to be really good for us. I know he's probably going to be ceding a lot of snaps to Dobbins, but Dobbins is not exactly the healthiest guy over the course of his career. We could certainly see him miss time. This is going to be an easy pick for me here with RJ Harvey. A really strong start to this roster, so I'm feeling really good about that. We got Hampton, RJ Harvey at running back, Neighbors, Nico, and Pickens at wide receiver, and then George Kittle at tight end. I feel super stoked about this roster. I'd love going into the season with this. So I think we're in a really good spot here. Now we've got to play the waiting game, of course, right? We've got to wait 20 picks before our next one, so that's going to be a little bit of a bummer. So what we're looking at now is we are looking at a situation where our next pick, I'd like to get another receiver. Typically, I want my first bench player to be a wide receiver, just because typically in a full PPR, you're going to be wanting your flex spot to be a wide receiver, so it makes a lot of sense to have that extra little bit of an option. So if we're looking at our next pick 7, we're going to be looking at picking right around pick 83. So right here, none of the wide receivers stand out to me as fantastic. Matthew Golden is a fantastic upside option. I don't want to draft Golden as a guy that I need to start, but I'm kind of coming around on that even. And beyond that, I think Golden's a guy that it sounds like more and more is just going to have a ton of opportunity right out of the gate. Could be really good, and I, especially as my wide receiver 4, I'd feel really great about that. Of the other wide receivers available, I don't love that. So taking a look, I do think Jalen Warren is a fantastic pick, and Tyrone Tracy. Both those guys seem like they've got good opportunities to catch a lot of passes this season, so I definitely would consider that. Jacoby Myers, if he slipped, I would love. Same thing with McMillan or Waddle or Rome, but they're not going to. So we'll see how that goes. But I do generally think that I want to get a receiver here, but I'm not going to force it, especially because, just I think there's plenty of wide receivers a little bit later, and running back does dry up a little bit. So we've got to keep that in mind. I just want to glance at quarterback with our next pick, too. Bo Nix is interesting. That kind of gives us a little mini stack with RJ Harvey. If he were there, I would be okay going with a running back or a wide receiver, and then Bo Nix on my next pick. Other than that, like Kyler is a guy that I like. I could certainly consider him. Dak Prescott is interesting for me as well. It just gives us a nice stack with George Pickens. So all those are options. I do think Bo Nix probably has the most upside of all these guys, so I'd probably be looking at Bo Nix if I could, but definitely just want to keep that in mind. I don't want to get too far without. I want to make sure that we're at least acknowledging the possibility of taking a value at the quarterback position if it's there. That kind of sucks. McMillan made it a lot further than I thought he would, so I was really hoping he would make it there, but he didn't. And now we also saw Tracy and Jalen Warren go. So we're looking at a situation here where really none of the running backs stand out to me as great options. Joe Mixon, actually, if he's there, I would feel like I have to take him. Like, that is getting him as your running back 3 in the this end of the 7th round. Like, I can't pass that up. So I would definitely take Mixon here if he's available. And then I'd feel really good about my running back room, right? You could go Mixon and someone like Brian Robinson. Just give yourself 4 running backs that you feel good about, then you're done. You could leave the draft with just those 4. So I could consider that. We'll see what the values present themselves as. Okay, so if we look at across the board here, I think Joe Mixon's probably going to be available. This guy already has 3 running backs, so he's probably not going to take another running back. So I think I can wait on Mixon. If I look at wide receiver, I love Olave, but I'm just slow, not as excited as I once was about him. I think the offense is going to be really bad. So I think I'm going to take Bo Nix here, lock in our quarterback, give us a little mini stack, and it really gives us upside that I don't think a guy like Dak would have given us. So I like that. And then what I'm hoping is that we can get Joe Mixon here as our 8th round pick. So that's the objective here. Kind of neat. I don't advocate for intentionally doing this, but it's always just kind of nice when you look at your roster during your draft and you fill out the starting roster first. You don't have to do that, of course. I totally recommend taking values like wide receiver and running back for your bench before you force a quarterback. But it worked out this way, and I think Bo Nix is going to be a great asset for us this year. And now the obvious pick. It's crazy seeing Chris Olave in the 8th round and then passing on him. But I like Joe Mixon. The value here is my running back 3. It's just going to make me feel really good about my roster there. So we'll take Joe Mixon. Again, I've never been historically very high on Joe Mixon, but just year in and year out, he gets a ton of touches. The injury is concerning. But as my running back 3 in the 8th round, where's the risk, right? If he misses if I knew he was going to start the season on the PUP, miss the first 4 weeks, and then come back and be the starter for the Texans, I would absolutely take him right here because with these 2 running backs, Hampton and Harvey, I think I'll be okay for the first 4 weeks. And then as we get into bye weeks, I'm going to get Joe Mixon back, who can be a running back 1 for me. And then as we go into the playoffs and all that, Mixon will be a guy that I'm looking to start every single week. So, because it's not like there's competition in Houston, right? I'm not worried about a situation where Mixon misses 4 weeks and comes back and ends up in a timeshare because a couple other guys play really well. Nick Chubb is washed. Dameon Pierce has not been good for a couple years now. Woody Marks is a day 3 rookie, undersized, not going to command a massive workload. So, Joe Mixon's the dude when he gets back. So I feel totally okay about that. I feel great about drafting him in the 8th round here. I think people are getting a little bit too scared off of him. Jordan Addison is not a pick I can get behind. We saw him just go in the 8th round. I don't really get the appeal there. I think the thing with Addison is that he's a mediocre fantasy asset when he's healthy and available, and he's guaranteed to miss the first 3 weeks in a situation where you can't use your IR spot on him because he's suspended. So with a guy like Jordan Addison, you're holding at best a low-end wide receiver 2 on your bench for a few weeks. It's very replaceable production. and it's clogging up your roster during the most important part of the year when you're looking to go through waivers, because the best waiver wire assets do show up early on in the season. That's when the most surprises are going to happen. Like, it's very rare that outside of injury, a player just magically has a significantly different role in week 9 than he did in week 8. So typically those big values do present themselves early on in the season, and I definitely want to make sure that I'm ready and flexible earlier on in the year, and having someone like a Jordan Addison on your roster just sort of clogs things up and makes it a little bit difficult. Just a couple other things I want to keep in mind. What I really want my next pick to be, and I'm going to reach a little bit, but Emeka Egbuka, he is being drafted way too low. He's an auto pick for me on ESPN in the 9th round. Like, Egbuka might be the wide receiver 1 for the Buccaneers. I'm not going to bet on that necessarily. I'd probably still bet on it being Evans, but like, Egbuka looks legitimately awesome. I'm going to make an effort to get Egbuka in about as many leagues as I can. If I'm in an auction draft, I'm basically leaving with him every single time. He's just a fantastic player. I think he's going to be really good. I'm absolutely taking Egbuka right here. Just as my first wide receiver on the bench, too, that's awesome. We get a couple weeks to sort of see how things shake out, and then we get to use him. So with our next pick, though, it's a little bit interesting. One thing we could look at, and I'm strongly considering, Jordan Mason would be awesome. It's one more running back that I'd feel good about, especially with Mixon. I feel a little iffy early on in the year, right? Because what if Harvey doesn't have a role to start the year? And Mixon's out, then I'm down on running backs. But Jordan Mason's a guy, he's on the board right now that I think I could start, so we could certainly consider him. Keon Coleman gives us a lot of upside at the wide receiver position, but I don't think I need that. Jaden Higgins is also a consideration, but I don't really want to double dip on Higgins and Nico. So for me, it's going to be Jordan Mason. I feel really good about him as my RB4, and a guy that I can start until Mixon gets back. I wanted that little bit of extra depth just to help me out there. So one thing I want to look at here, I was going to just glance to see if Tyler Warren was available. It looks like he got drafted. Yeah, he got drafted about a round ago. Okay, I was just going to say, even with George Kittle, I'm open to taking a guy like Tyler Warren late, just because I think the upside's legitimately there. But he was gone already. I just wanted to take a glance and see if it was there. It wasn't going to be a priority pick for me or anything, but I just felt like it was worth mentioning him. So with our last 4 picks, I feel really good about our starting lineup here. We got 3 guys on our bench that I feel good about starting as well. So at this point, when I get to this point in the draft, what I'm typically looking for is pretty much upside only. I took a pretty early quarterback and a pretty early tight end, so I'm not going to draft another one of those. We could draft a second quarterback if we really wanted to, like with our last pick, if we wanted to go a guy like J.J. McCarthy or Drake May or something, we could, but I don't really see a whole lot of value there. I think that Bo Nix is much better value here, so we're just going to look at the flex spot. We're just going to start queuing guys who I think have legitimate upside. So let's see. I think that I would have said Spears, but not with the injury. Braylon Allen needs to be noted. Tyler Algier, of course, if there's an injury. I don't think Eckler really does. I think Josh Downs has a lot of upside, and especially in a full PPR, I like him quite a bit. Cedric Tillman's a guy that I like. Luther Burden is at least worth noting. As a guy that, there's some unknown there. So there's certainly upside for sure. Kyle Williams is a guy I like. You guys know I have a problem with Chikakonkwo. But for me, I think the most obvious selection here is going to be probably with going Braylon Allen here. I think Braylon Allen's a guy that has a legitimate role in the Jets offense to start the season. And then as the year goes on, there's a legitimate chance that we see a Breece Hall trade happen at some point. And if that were to happen, I think that would absolutely give you a lot of value out of Braylon Allen. So I like Braylon Allen quite a bit. Ray Davis, got to mention him. I just think he's talented, right? I don't necessarily think that he's going to be the starter or anything over James Cook. They clearly paid James Cook. They like him. But James Cook is a guy that could miss time. It's also still going to be a timeshare there, so you got to mention him. Other stuff we can look for here. Bashal Tootin is interesting. We could also consider somebody like Najee. Getting Najee in the 12th round feels pretty good. I think he's better than a lot of these handcuffs, right? Because if Hampton went down, we know Najee's the starter. And maybe there's a timeshare enough where you could use him. And I have Hampton, so it's sort of an insurance policy. Also kind of nice because he's a guy that's marked as out. So right after your draft, you can just throw him on IR and then add another guy off waivers. So I think actually Najee makes a lot of sense here with this pick. And now I've got a lot of running backs on my bench here. So what I'm going to be looking to do with my last 2 picks is probably to go wide receiver. I'm not going to force that, but I think generally that's going to be the best approach here. Again, at this spot, I want to target upside, so I think a guy like Kyle Williams stands out to me. Cedric Tillman stands out to me. Jalen McMillan, kind of, but not really. I don't want Igbokwe and McMillan. I'm going to mention him again. I mentioned him on an undrafted sleepers video, but don't forget about Deontay Johnson. I know last year could not have gone any worse for him, but he is legitimately talented, and he's on an offense that's going to throw the ball a ton, and there's no ridiculous target competition. Like, it's not like he's on a team with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins where you know he's the wide receiver 3. He's going to start in the slot for the Browns, and his target competition is Judy, who's had about 8 good games in his career, and Cedric Tillman, who's had even less than that. So if you told me at the end of the year that Deontay Johnson, who's still young, he's still got plenty of years left in his prime, if you told me at the end of the year that Deontay Johnson finishes the wide receiver 1 for the Browns, I don't think I'd be super shocked. So I just want to mention that. For me, though, Kyle Williams is going to be the pick here. And then we got one more spot with our next pick. If Bashal Tutin is there, I would take him. If he's like a last-round pick. Oh, actually, Luther Burden's interesting, too. Okay, so the thing with Tutin is I don't think he's going to have a role early in the season. And I don't think we're going to know a lot early in the season as to where Luther Burden, we might know right away how involved he's going to be. So Tutin's going to have to earn his way onto the field. So I'm going to go Burden here. Feel good about that. It's, rookie wide receivers at the end of your draft, really great upside shots to take. So, yeah, this was a fun draft. Overall, I really like this roster. Let me know what you guys think. I think that in general, the 11 spot's a pretty nice spot to pick from. I do think we got a little bit lucky with Amari and Hampton making it back to me at the end of round 3. If that didn't happen, I would feel pretty scared about my running back room. But overall, I'd give this roster probably like an A-. I feel really great about it. I don't feel like we're weak anywhere aside from maybe running back 2, but there's a lot of upside behind Hampton, like Harvey, Mixon, Mason. One of those 3 is going to pan out and be good for us. So the rosters to summarize here, we got Bo Nix at quarterback. We have Amari and Hampton, R.J. Harvey, Joe Mixon, Jordan Mason, Braylon Allen, and Najee Harris at running back. At wide receiver, we have Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, George Pickens, Emeka Igbokwe, Kyle Williams, and Luther Burden. And then at tight end, we've got George Kittle. So really no weak spot. I feel really good about this roster, and I feel great about it going into the year. So like I mentioned earlier, this was a video. It was a mock draft requested by one of the subscribers. If you want a mock draft done, just let me know in the comments below. I'll try and get that done for you guys, get that out. Should be a lot of fun. And again, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a ton of content coming up over the next several weeks. Just lots of good stuff coming up. We're going to have a lot of fun this season. I'm really stoked about it. There'll be at least 3 to 4 videos a week over the course of the entire year. And I think if you stick around all season and off season long, we're going to win some championships together. Sorry, I was brain dead thinking about which defense I wanted to pick for some reason. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Really helps me out. And I will catch you guys with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.